Chapter 12, Mishnah 3. We learned in the previous Mishnah that if someone sprinkled mechatas on a tame person or utensil without intending to do so, the sprinkling is not valid. Our Mishnah teaches that a similar rule applies to dipping the azav in the mechatas. If a person dipped the azav into the mechatas and he intended to use it to sprinkle something that can become tame, i.e. he intended to sprinkle a person or utensil, and instead he sprinkled it on something that cannot become tame, such as a live animal or a stone utensil, if there is still enough water remaining on the azav, he does not need to dip it again into the mechatas before sprinkling something that is tame. Rather, he may sprinkle it with the water that is left on this azav. Since he dipped the azav into the mechatas with the proper intention to sprinkle something that could be tame, the water on the azav is fit for sprinkling, even though it was first used to sprinkle something that cannot be tame. But if he did the opposite, that is, he dipped the azav into the mechatas with the intention of sprinkling it on something that cannot become tame, and he then sprinkled something that could become tame, even if there is still enough water remaining on the azav to sprinkle something else that is tame, he must first dip the azav into the mechatas again with the intention of sprinkling the item that is tame, and then sprinkle it. Since he dipped the azav into the mechatas with an improper intention to sprinkle something that could not be tame, the water on the azav is not fit for sprinkling, even though it was first used to sprinkle something that is tame. The Mishnah gives an example of this rule. If he dipped the azav with the intention of sprinkling a person, something that can become tame, and he then sprinkled an animal, something that cannot become tame, if there is still enough water remaining on the azav, he does not need to dip it again before sprinkling a person who is tame. Rather, he may sprinkle him with the water that is left on this azav. But if he dipped the azav with the intention of sprinkling an animal, and he then sprinkled a person with this water, even if there is still enough water left on the azav, he must dip it again before he could sprinkle it on the person who is tame, because the original dipping was not valid. The Mishnah has said that if someone dipped the azav into the mechatas with an improper intention, he must dip it again before using it to sprinkle a tame person. This implies that he does not have to dry off the azav before dipping it a second time, even though there is water on it from the improper dipping. The Mishnah now teaches us the status of the water that is on the azav before it is dipped again. The water that drips from the azav into another container is valid for sprinkling. Although this water could not be used for sprinkling when it was on the azav, it did not become invalidated. Therefore, if it drips into another container, he may dip the azav into it with the proper intention and sprinkle with it. Therefore, the drops that are on the improperly dipped azav transmit tuma as mechatas to someone who touches or carries them.